is Fantasy Football Picks and Bets presented by Prize Picks. Use code MMN when you deposit at prizepicks.com to get a match deposit of up to $100. Meaning, if you deposit $100, you will have $200 to play with on prizepicks.com. Check out the fantasy props, the overs and the unders. Coming up momentarily, Pete Overzet is going to have the DraftKings first look and research for you for the week to get started, to get your plans on the go, to go win some of that money. Plus, I do want to let you know that if you go to runthesims.com/Mayo, you'll get a discount on the DFS Optimizer, the single game showdown simulator, and you can run everything, including your own custom projections, up to 10,000 times to see the distribution of floor and ceiling and where those median projections are going to be. I highly recommend it. runthesims.com/Mayo. Enough of me. Let's get to Pete.
Friends, this might be the hardest show I've ever had to do in my life, but we are here. I'm Peter Overzet on the Mayo Media Network, ready to give a first look at the Week 16 DFS salaries. As I record this, we have COVID ravaging its way across the league. We have 4 games still left on the Week 15 slate, and I have been getting dusted on back-to-back-to-back main slates. But the show truly must go on. I have looked at the Week 16 slate, and I am ready to give you my initial thoughts here. Let's get to this here. Obviously, no bye weeks here in Week 16. We do have Saturday games, so we have 5 total games that are not on the main slate. We have the 49ers and Titans playing on Thursday night. We have the Browns, Packers, Colts, Cardinals playing on Saturday. We have Sunday Night Football, Washington Football Team versus the Cowboys. And then we have Monday Night Football, Dolphins and Saints. So none of those teams are on the main slate. We also have, it looks like a slightly better slate than this past week. And it was truly a historically bad slate. I think it was the fewest touchdowns scored on a main slate in over 27 years was the stat I saw from from Scott Hansen on Twitter. So it's been rough. It's been rough out there. Hopefully we can turn things around. We do have the Rams-Vikings game that has a 49-point over under. We have the Chargers Texans game, 47.5 over under. That could be fun. Steelers Chiefs potentially could be fun, 46.5 over under. And then not necessarily a shootout game, but we do get a rematch of the Bills Patriots game from that windy Monday Night Football matchup a couple weeks ago. That game currently has a 44 over under. We also have a bunch of injuries. Who knows what COVID has in store for us this week, but I'm going to try to do my best here to walk through this slate and talk about anything standing out to me. Quarterback actually looks pretty solid. You know, Mahomes at home versus the Steelers at 7,700 after their really big back-to-back games, really. First against the Chargers, most recently, and then 2 weeks ago against the Raiders. So I imagine Patrick Mahomes at 7,700 is going to be very popular here. Josh Allen on the road at New England, I think that's kind of a tough spot for him. I think you can throw out the splits from a couple weeks ago just because that was impacted so much by the wind and the elements. So I'll be curious to see what the field does with him. Tom Brady, of course, coming off of one of his worst games of the year. The Bucs got shut out against the Saints on Sunday Night Football. And now you have him without the majority of his weapons. It sounds like Chris Godwin is going to miss the rest of the regular season. Mike Evans has a hamstring injury. Leonard Fournette has a hamstring injury. I haven't heard anything as of Monday afternoon about Evans and Fournette specifically, but Brady could certainly be without a bunch of weapons here on the road at Carolina, who is still able to manage a decent pass rush these days. We saw them get to Josh Allen a few times yesterday. I think Herbert looks very intriguing here versus Houston. Houston seems to find themselves in a ton of pace-up, high-scoring games. Chargers obviously putting up a ton of points these days, so I think that's intriguing. Tyler Huntley looked awesome in reserve of Lamar Jackson yesterday. I have no idea if we're going to get Lamar Jackson back or not. I mean, if there was any uncertainty I think you could feel comfortable rolling Tyler Huntley out. I mean, he played really, really well yesterday, even though they lost that game. 215 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, also had 73 yards rushing and 2 rushing TDs. So whichever of Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley starts, I think is going to be in a pretty good spot against Cincinnati. That could potentially be a fun game. And then we have a couple quarterbacks in the highest scoring, projected scoring game of the week in the Rams and the Vikings. We have Matt Stafford here at 6,700 and Kirk Cousins at 6,200. To me, that seems like a pretty fun spot for fantasy purposes. And then Jalen Hurts here, who we haven't seen play yet this week. He will play tomorrow against the Washington football team. I'm pretty interested in him at 6,400. It's been a while. It seems like since we last saw him play against the Giants there, but still chasing kind of that high floor, high ceiling combo that we saw against New Orleans in week 11. As far as getting cheap at quarterback, obviously Huntley was priced up, so there's nothing there. Not a lot down here. I guess Jared Goff or Matt Ryan in that matchup, I could see that being a game that has a decent amount of fantasy points. We've seen Jared Goff. I mean, he played great yesterday against the Cardinals. Very productive game for him, 20 fantasy points. So him and Matt Ryan could definitely get to slinging it in the dome down here. Mac Jones, the passing offense just isn't robust enough to support that. Maybe Justin Fields against Seattle. We're going to watch Justin Fields play tonight against the Vikings. That could potentially be interesting. He really has been improving of late. So we have some options. I think we can also toss Trevor Lawrence down here on the road at at the Jets. And Trevor Lawrence now without Urban Meyer in this matchup that a lot of teams have been teeing off on against the Jets, that could be interesting too. So just as I kind of walk through all of these quarterback options this week, I'm pretty excited, at least relative to this past week, about the amount of options we have here. Let's head over to running back. Again, lots of uncertainty here as far as guys who are playing over the next couple of days. Their stock and kind of industry sentiment certainly could change. We have COVID, we have injuries, but let's do our best here. Dalvin Cook at the top end. He does play tonight, 8,300, coming off of a massive game in week 14 against Pittsburgh, 38.2 fantasy points. He will certainly be in contention to be the top overall play. Austin Eckler versus the Texans. That looks like an awesome spot. Maybe a little bit limited last Thursday, but now it will be coming off of a 10-day rest. So that should bode well for his prospects. Najee Harris, have had a hard time getting excited about him. He looks a little too pricey here at 7,400 on the road at KC. Leonard Fournette, if his hamstring is not good, I mean, Ronald Jones is priced down here at 5,100. Obviously, I think they would have adjusted that price had they known about Fournette's injury, but these salaries, I believe, came out previous to that game starting. So Ronald Jones at 5,100, if there was no Fournette, would be pretty interesting. And he looked good last night. 8 rushing attempts for 63 yards, 2 receptions for 8 yards. So keep an eye on Ronald Jones there if Leonard Fournette were to miss some time. Joe Mixon also came away with an ankle injury yesterday. If he were to miss, then Samaje Perine would be extremely interesting at 4,400. We saw Perine fill in for Mixon last year toward the end of the year and had a 100+ yard game. He catches some passes, and he's even had a bit of a serviceable role even when Mixon is healthy. So I like this a lot. Definitely going to keep tabs on him, but him at home there as a bell cow back, if Mixon were to miss at 4,400, would be what we call a smash play in the business. Let's see here. Cordell Patterson was so close to having a bigger day yesterday. He had a touchdown called back. I was pretty upset about that. Him at 6,700 at home versus Detroit looks interesting to me. Saquon Barkley, I mean, he looks fine, but he actually got outproduced yesterday in the rushing department by Devonta Booker. So, Barkley and Zeke are kind of in a similar boat right now where, they're still getting some touches and yet they're often getting outproduced by their backfield mates. So not a lot of love for Barkley. Javonte Williams is going to be interesting to me in this spot versus Vegas. Obviously, the Broncos struggled yesterday in that low-scoring game. Teddy Bridgewater carted off the field. I think it kind of just sunk the entire team's prospects, but this kind of workload split is still very promising to me. 15 rush attempts, 4 targets. So Javonte Williams, we know, is super talented. Nothing has changed on that front. We'll be pretty stoked to play him against Las Vegas there, depending on how things shake out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at home, at 5,800. This is actually a really nice spot here in this 5,000 range. We have James Robinson against the Jets coming off of a really big workload game. Maybe Carlos Hyde comes back, but hopefully this new regime without Urban Meyer realizes that their best chance to win is to give James Robinson a bunch of carries. So he'll be a popular play. Darrell Henderson, he is returning for tomorrow's game against the Seahawks. The early indications are that he'll be splitting with Sony Michel. We will see, because earlier this season, Henderson had been operating as their true back. So I think we'll get a lot more information tonight with how the team is feeling about Henderson, but he could be very interesting at 5,700. Damian Harris, of course, missed this week with a hamstring. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him, because if he is out again, Ramondre Stevenson, who did kind of disappoint people on Saturday night against the Colts, only 10 rushing attempts for 36 yards, he would be another good play. He's another one of those plays you're just going to have to go back to if Damian Harris was out. So that looks interesting to me. David Montgomery plays tonight. He's 5,700. David Montgomery against the Seahawks, who have been very beatable on the ground. That'll be interesting to me. Rashad Penny plays tonight at 5,500. He will, I assume, lead the backfield in carries after coming off of that big game against Houston. So a lot to like down here in this cheap range. It could be set up for a pretty good week as far as that's concerned. I'm even willing to entertain Michael Carter. I know he didn't have a great game there, but they were winning for a lot of the game using more Tevin Coleman. I still expect Michael Carter to be the primary pass catching back. So that's probably about as gross as I'm going to get. If we get a Ronald Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Michael Carter in this 5,000 range, and then P. Ryan as well would be my other preferred cheap guys. Let's check out wide receiver. We are going to get Cooper Kupp back on the main slate, 9,100. Just seeing all of the value at running back, seeing how much ownership Devontae Adams garnered this past week at 8,900. I think Cooper Kupp is going to be extremely popular. But we also have some good options up here on the top end. So maybe it's a little bit more spread out. If Justin Jefferson goes nuclear again tonight, he's going to be popular. Tyreek Hill versus that Steelers secondary looks good to me. Keenan Allen versus the Texans. Diggs is probably the one here where people just aren't quite as confident. We saw Gabriel Davis get the majority of the production. So we'll have to keep an eye on Stephon Diggs, but a pretty nice crop of elite wide receivers this week. Chris Godwin, like I said, is not going to play, and Evans is questionable. So the names that are kind of interesting to me there would be Scotty Miller at 3,600, Tyler Johnson at 3,900. I think both those guys could offer nice salary relief. Tyler Johnson has usually operated as the kind of replacement for Godwin, kind of a similar skill set. So he's the one I'd be looking for. Scotty Miller is more operated as an Evans or Antonio Brown outside replacement. And speaking of Antonio Brown, he is supposed to come back this week. The team said they were going to be activating him, rejoining the team. So he'll be in play at 4,900, especially if both Godwin and Evans are out. Currently just for sure expecting Godwin out. So keep an eye on the Bucs wide receivers. You get your angry Tom Brady. You get some vacated targets there opening up. So definitely interested in the Bucs passing game. Let's see what else we have up here. Jamar Chase really disappointing people there in week 15. I would expect a bounce back there. Hunter Renfrow all the way up to 6,800. I mean, this is out of control. I will probably continue not to play Hunter Renfrow, and he will probably continue to put up 20 plus points. So that is just how it goes. Mike Williams against the Texans, interested in that. Get Devonta Smith back on the main slate. He probably will go really overlooked just at this price tag, unless he has a really big game tomorrow. Russell Gage has been playing well. Let me check his box score here. Yeah. 2 games over 23 points in the past 3 weeks. That's kind of interesting. He's starting to click a little bit more with Matt Ryan, and now he gets Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown, kind of similar to the Russell Gage play, just a guy that's getting a ton of volume, 3 straight games now with 11 or more targets. He has just turned into a very steady play. Don't mind him, kind of a cheaper version of the Hunter Renfrow play. And I'd rather, save the 1,200 and play Amon-Ra over Hunter Renfrow. We will have to see kind of what shakes out with some of these other kind of COVID and injury designations down here. Darnell Mooney, if Allen Robinson were to miss again at 5,400, is obviously interesting. Let me scroll down here, see if I can find anything else. Gabe Davis, it looks like, has been priced up. Gabe Davis now up to 4,700. So with Emmanuel Sanders missing time, the cat's kind of out of the bag about Gabe Davis's role really increasing. Maybe there's a buyback spot or a buy low spot here on Cole Beasley at 4,600. I'm glad Rashad Bateman's price has come down a smidge. He was a little pricey last week. I believe he was at 5,100. He was at 5,100, or Sammy Watkins was, or I can just look right here. He was at 5,000 last week. Goodness. This is how rough of a week it's been. I'm trying to remember the salary when it's right in front of me. 5,000 for Rashad Bateman last week. So he comes down $500. Interested in that. Man, Cortland Sutton down here at 4,200. Maybe Drew Lock, if Teddy Bridgewater misses, can kind of unlock, no pun intended, Cortland Sutton there. I truly did not mean to make a pun. I'm begging you. I didn't make a pun. Okay. It was completely accidental. Laviska Shenault showed signs of life without Urban Meyer around. Back-to-back games with 7 targets. I think it's safe to question the upside, but at 4,100 against the Jets, I think he's a pretty good bet for 10 plus points. Allen Robinson, wow, all the way down here at 4,000. I actually think that'll be an interesting play if he is activated. We have the Bucks guys who I mentioned down here, and not seeing a ton else down in this range, but you never know. You never know what can open up as the week progresses. Mecole Hardman down here at 3,500. Oh my, how the mighty have fallen. Let's head over to tight end. Here we have Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews here at the top, both coming off of monster games. Travis Kelce, 44 points on that Thursday night game against the Chargers. Mark Andrews, 2 huge games with Tyler Huntley, 31 points and 38.6 points. Those guys are going to be very popular. Gronk looks like a nice play to me. I know he's up here at 6,200, but you remove Godwin from the mix, have to expect a few extra targets headed Gronk's way. Kyle Pitts honestly looked a little bit better on Sunday as well. 7 targets for 77 yards, still getting used deep down the field. Dawson Knox, always interesting, tied to Josh Allen. But in general, this kind of mid-range of tight end has just not been the place where we want to be for tight ends. We're either wanting to pay up for the elite ceiling with Kelce and Andrews, or pay down and kind of punt the position. A lot of these Goddard, Henry, Noah Fant types are tough to nail kind of their touchdown game. You're really dependent on the touchdowns with them. Let's see. I'll be curious if Waller continues to miss time. Moreau at 3,600 would be interesting. Cole Kmet is interesting here if Justin Fields continues to play well and maybe Allen Robinson misses time. James O'Shaughnessy, another guy you can always punt with. 6 targets 2 weeks ago, 4 for 60 yesterday. So again, nothing to get you super, super excited. But it's usable. It's usable at tight end, which is such a gross position. Albert Akui-Bunam actually led the Broncos in receiving yesterday, 4 targets for 58 yards. If we could just condense Albert O and Noah Fant into one tight end, they would be an elite tight end. But nevertheless, they are splitting. CJ Uzoma had a decent game yesterday. And I say decent just because he got 4 targets and he's been averaging here, a little over 5 targets a game in the past 3 weeks. So that is viable. Let me see if I can find you a true punt down here. A true punt, anything. I'm not seeing much all the way down there. And we, of course, as always, can wrap up with defense. Let's see if we have anything fun down here in the cheap range. Oh, Panthers, 2,300 versus Tom Brady without weapons could be fun. Houston at home versus Justin Herbert, who is known to turn the ball over every now and again, could be fun. Falcons at home versus Jared Goff. I don't hate that. Jaguars and Jets against each other. So yeah, I actually like a lot of these cheap defenses. Up here on the high end, the Chiefs at home versus Big Ben, I think could be fun. Eagles versus Mike Glennon, of course, could be fun. So yeah, some nice stuff up here. Probably going to avoid this like Bills, Rams, Ravens stuff in here. Seahawks at home versus Justin Fields could be good. So that is your first look at the defenses, and that is your first look at the Week 16 slate. Thank you for hanging in there with me, powering through. It was, I'm not going to lie, it was tough to get the mental framework to look ahead to Week 16 with 4 games still left on this Week 15 slate and lots of uncertainty around injuries and projections. But the show must go on, and it is truly helpful to orient ourselves and get prepared for the slate ahead. Definitely, keep your head up, shake off the rust and the bad outcomes from Week 15, and we will rebound here in Week 16. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. You can follow me on Twitter at Peter Overzet. If you want to get in the showdown streets or you want to run simulations on these main slates, find out what plays the math likes more than the field. You can project it against ownership. I highly recommend checking out Run the Sims. You can use promo code Pete for 10% off. The Sims have been absolutely awesome. I won $4,000 last night on Showdown using a lineup from Run the Sims. So highly recommend. It's going to be very fun to use here for the rest of the season. We also have weekly and monthly options, so you can get all squared away for this playoff run as well. Looking forward to that. Feel free to ask me if you have any questions. You can also ask Pat Mayo, Justin Freeman. We will tell you about all the good stuff going on over at Run the Sims. That is it for me. Good luck with your Week 16 prep. We'll see you next time.